The cabin was supposed to be the end of everything, or maybe the beginning of forgetting. A single dollar exchanged hands, and with it came a rotting wooden shack buried deep in snow, a place so isolated that even hope seemed to avoid it. The veteran did not come there to be saved, and he certainly did not expect that on one frozen morning, his dog would pull him toward a nightmare hanging between life and death, changing both of them forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of compassion, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this only matter if they reach hearts that still believe. The veteran's name no longer mattered to most people. War had a way of stripping identity down to scars and silence. He had served his country for years, watched friends disappear in dust and fire, and returned home carrying a weight that no uniform could hold. Cities felt too loud, people too curious, and memories too sharp. So when he heard about a government auction selling abandoned land for almost nothing, he followed the listing north, far away from familiar roads and familiar faces. The cabin he bought for $1 stood crooked among frozen trees, its roof sagging under years of neglect, its windows clouded like tired eyes. To him, it felt honest. Broken, cold, but still standing. His only companion was his dog, a German shepherd mix with alert eyes and a loyalty that did not ask questions. The dog had come from a shelter, unwanted and labeled difficult, much like the man himself. Together they learned the rhythms of survival. Chopping wood until hands went numb, melting snow for water, fixing holes in the walls with salvaged boards. Nights were long, filled with the sound of wind pressing against the cabin like an uninvited memory. Some nights the veteran barely slept, staring at the ceiling as the past crept back in pieces. Other nights, exhaustion won, and the dog lay close, a steady warmth and a reminder that something still depended on him. Winter tightened its grip earlier than expected. Snow fell in heavy silence, swallowing paths and burying landmarks. The forest became a white maze where mistakes could be fatal. The veteran stayed close to the cabin, venturing out only when necessary. One morning, after a night of relentless snowfall, the dog began to behave strangely. He paced near the door, whining low, ears stiff, nose pressed against the cold wood. This was not hunger or restlessness. This was urgency. When the door finally opened, the dog bolted forward, cutting a sharp line through untouched snow, glancing back as if demanding to be followed. The veteran hesitated only a moment before grabbing his coat and rifle, instinct taking over. The forest felt different that day, heavier, quieter in a way that made the air feel wrong. Snow clung to branches, and each step sank deep, burning his legs. The dog moved with purpose, leading him farther than he had gone since arriving. Then the smell reached him, faint but unmistakable, a mix of fear and something metallic carried by the cold wind. They reached a clearing where an old wooden structure stood, perhaps once used for storage or hunting. From its beam hung a shape that did not belong to the forest. A young woman, barely conscious, suspended by a rope, her body swaying slightly as the wind moved through her soaked hair. Her face was pale, lips blue, eyes half open with a look that seemed already resigned to death. Snow covered her boots, her coat, and the ground beneath her, as if the world had already begun to erase her. The veteran moved without thought, every instinct screaming. He cut the rope, catching her weight as she collapsed, lighter than she should have been. Her body was cold, dangerously cold, and her breathing shallow. There were marks on her wrists, bruises on her neck, signs that this was no accident. Someone had left her there, believing the snow would finish the job. The dog stood close, whining softly, pressing against her as if trying to lend warmth. Getting her back to the cabin was a battle against time and terrain. The veteran half carried, half dragged her through the snow, his muscles screaming, lungs burning. He slipped more than once, but he did not stop. When they finally reached the cabin, he wrapped her in every blanket he owned, built a fire so hot it cracked old wood, and used what little first aid knowledge he had left from the service. He rubbed her hands, checked her breathing, forced warm water between her lips in small amounts. Hours passed in a blur of fear and determination. When her eyes finally opened fully, there was confusion, terror, and disbelief. She tried to move, panic rising, but her body was too weak. The veteran stayed back, making himself small, slow, careful. He knew what fear looked like, knew how easily it could turn into something dangerous. Over time, her breathing steadied. The dog lay at her feet, unmoving, a silent guard. The days that followed revealed pieces of her story without words. She had been running from something or someone. There were old scars beneath the fresh ones, and a look in her eyes that spoke of betrayal. She was young, younger than the weight she carried, and the cold had nearly taken everything from her. The veteran did not ask questions. He focused on keeping her alive. He shared his food, adjusted his routines, slept in a chair by the fire so she could have the bed. Each small act chipped away at the walls he had built around himself. Outside, the storm worsened. Snow trapped them together, turning the cabin into a fragile island in a frozen sea. With no signal and no nearby neighbors, they relied on each other. The woman slowly regained strength, sitting up, then standing, then helping with simple tasks. There was gratitude in her eyes, and something else too, a quiet recognition of shared pain. Two broken people, held together by circumstance and a dog who refused to give up. As the days turned into weeks, the veteran felt something unfamiliar stirring inside him. Purpose. Not the rigid kind drilled into him by orders and commands, but a softer, deeper one. Protecting someone not because he was told to, but because he chose to. He repaired the cabin more carefully, expanded the firewood supply, made plans beyond the next meal. The nightmares still came, but they came less often, chased away by the sound of another person breathing nearby, alive because he had acted. Eventually, the weather eased enough to attempt contact with the outside world. When help finally arrived, it brought questions, investigations, and the truth. The woman had been abducted, abused, and left for dead by someone she trusted. The cabin, the dog, and a man trying to disappear had been the difference between her story ending in snow or continuing forward. When authorities offered to take her away immediately, she hesitated. Safety waited beyond the trees, but so did memory she was not ready to face. The veteran understood that hesitation more than anyone. He did not try to convince her of anything. He simply made sure she knew she had a choice, something she had been denied for too long. In the end, she left with help, medical care, and a chance to rebuild her life. Before she went, she looked at the cabin, at the dog, at the men who had saved her without asking for anything in return. Gratitude was not enough to describe what passed between them. It was something deeper, a reminder that even in the coldest places, humanity could survive. The veteran stayed. The cabin was no longer just a place to hide. It was a place where life had been pulled back from the edge. He continued to live simply, but not emptily. Word spread quietly, and sometimes people came by, lost hikers, travelers in trouble. He helped when he could. The dog grew older, calmer, content. Together, they had rewritten the meaning of that $1 purchase. If this story reached you, if it made you feel something, please pause for a moment and let us know. Like the video, share it, and subscribe, because stories like this live on only through you. And before this video ends, leave a comment telling us what part of this story touched your heart the most, or simply write that you still believe in second chances. The cabin still stands in the snow, weathered but strong, much like the man who owns it. And somewhere out there, a woman walks forward with her life returned to her, because a dog listened to instinct, and a broken veteran chose compassion over isolation. Sometimes, salvation does not arrive with sirens or applause. Sometimes it comes quietly, through the crunch of snow, the pull of a leash, and the courage to care one more time.